Welcome back to Monitors Unboxed. It's time for a new recommendation video focusing on OLED gaming monitors. Across the last few years, OLED monitors have gone from being pretty much a non-existent category to now dominating the higher end of the market with high refresh rate, true HDR options in a variety of categories. If you're specifically interested in an OLED panel for gaming, this is the video for you. As with our previous best of videos, we tend to talk about and recommend monitors we've personally tested and know to be good, or monitors that are very similar to products we have tested. It's always worth going back and checking out the dedicated monitor reviews we produce for more in-depth thoughts on each product. But just so you know, these recommendations are not sponsored in any way by any company, they're based on our testing and reviews. Any pricing that we talk about was correct at the time of filming, but of course you should check in your region given the focus here is on monitors in US dollars. We have links in the description below to check current pricing if you happen to see this video weeks or months after it went live. Anyway, let's get into it. When choosing a high-end gaming monitor, the best category on the market right now is 32-inch 4K OLED. I've already mentioned this type of display in our 4K monitor buying guide, so if you've watched that video as well as this video, this segment is going to sound quite familiar, but whether you're after a high-end 4K monitor or a high-end OLED monitor, my recommendations are the same. In previous buying guides, I've tried to pick an outright favorite in this category, but the reality is that it's hard to separate all the different models. Pretty much everything I've tested has delivered impressive performance across all key areas, with differences ultimately coming down to edge features and price. There's plenty of great options, but nothing that stands well clear of the rest. There are two main 4K OLED panel types on the market right now. There's a 32-inch 4K 240Hz QD-OLED panel and a 32-inch 4K 240Hz WOLED panel. Both offer fast response times and per pixel control, the cornerstone of OLED, but there are a range of differences between the panels. Originally, I leant towards the QD-OLED option being better, but the more I've tested these OLEDs, the more I find it hard to settle on a clear preference. Ultimately, I think what you like in a monitor will determine which panel is a better choice, and our 4K WOLED versus 4K QD-OLED video goes into more detail on this. You should pick a 4K QD-OLED monitor if you want a glossy screen coating. The only glossy 4K monitors on the market right now are QD-OLED, as all the available WOLEDs use a matte finish. This is a personal preference thing, but I know some buyers won't consider an OLED unless it's glossy, in which case go QD-OLED. You should also pick QD-OLED if you want the widest color gamut and highest color brightness, and in some scenarios, though not always, QD-OLED's overall brightness is superior. You should pick a 4K WOLED monitor if you want to access dual mode functionality, which allows the panel to run at 1080p 480Hz for increased motion clarity, in addition to 4K 240Hz. This is a great feature if you play competitive games because it allows the panel to run faster and with lower input lag. I think it works seamlessly and adds to the versatility of the panel. You should also pick 4K WOLED if you want a more consistent brightness experience between high and low APL content, where you don't have to worry about different HDR modes, and also 4K WOLED does handle brighter environments a bit better thanks to its different panel composition and screen coating. Here are the monitors I recommend and why you might consider each one. The Asus ROG Swift PG32 UCDM is probably the overall best 4K QD-OLED on the market, with the most features, including an accurate sRGB mode with unlocked settings, fantastic HDR accuracy, ELMB black frame insertion, and Dolby Vision support. But it's also typically the most expensive at $1,300 US, and it can be very overpriced in other regions. So if you want the best, you'll have to pay for it. MSI offer a couple of cheaper options in the MPG321URX at $950 and the MAG321UPX at $900. I've only tested the 321URX model, but both should offer largely the same experience, with the 321UPX removing some USB ports and RGB lighting effects to reduce the price. These are not as feature-rich as the Asus model, no black frame insertion or Dolby Vision support, but performance is still excellent and they are overall significantly better value. However, pricing isn't as competitive outside the USA, at least relative to the Asus model, so be sure to do your research where you live. The Dell Alienware AW3225QF is the model you'd get if you want a curved screen, as it's the only current offering with a curve. I personally prefer flat as I think it makes more sense on a 32-inch 16:9 panel, but if you love a curve, Dell has you covered. Performance is very similar to the Asus and MSI models with a good feature set too, including Dolby Vision support. In many regions, this is one of the cheapest options and presents great value, often beating the MSI variants. Gigabyte also offer two 4K QD OLEDs, the Aorus FO32U2P at $1,250 and the Aorus FO32U2 at $1,000. I've tested the FO32U2P, but like with the MSI variants, I believe that lower cost models should perform very similarly. The main difference is DisplayPort 2.1 UHBR20 support. If you want the highest bandwidth DisplayPort, get the FO32U2P. If you're fine with DisplayPort 1.4, get the FO32U2. You should also consider the Gigabyte models if you want more HDR modes than its competitors, which gives you a bit more customization over how the display performs. Calibration is as good as the others. I personally don't believe DisplayPort 2.1 UHBR20 is worth paying a premium for, so I'd lean much more towards the FO32U2. Samsung also offer a 32-inch 4K QD OLED, the Odyssey OLED G80ST, which I haven't tested. Based on trusted reviews from people like TFT Central, the basics to performance are similar to the other models, but Samsung includes both a matte anti-glare coating and smart TV functionality, both of which aren't available on the other models. If those features sound appealing, it could be a good choice with pricing similar to the MSI Gigabyte and Dell variants. Finally, I also recommend the Asus ROG Swift PG32 UCDP if you want the 4K W OLED panel instead. I've also tested the LG variant, the 32GS95UE, but I believe the Asus model is clearly better due to its superior performance, features, and tuning. This one is pretty simple. Buy the PG32 UCDP if you want the W OLED panel and its dual mode functionality, better brightness performance in brighter scenes, and matte coating. It's a great display, but it is on the pricier side at $1,300 US. I think it's hard to go wrong with any of these models because the performance between them is so similar. I've included all as options because pricing does vary quite a bit between regions. With that said, as performance is so close, I'm drawn more towards the cheaper models from MSI, Gigabyte, and Dell compared to the more premium offerings from Asus. As good as those Asus models are, they aren't worth a 30% price premium or more, but some of the models do have unique characteristics like a curve, DisplayPort 2.1, or matte finishes. So you could also choose based on the specific things you like and buy something in the knowledge that baseline performance is very good across these monitors. Also, if you'd rather get a 4K OLED that's not 32 inches in size, you shouldn't have to wait too much longer, with new 27-inch 4K panels expected to debut in the first quarter of 2025. With strong competition in the 1440p OLED monitor market, there is no better time to grab one of these fantastic panels, with plenty of choice and aggressive price competition. Different types of gamer are being catered to now as well, whether you want an OLED for breathtaking single-player HDR gaming or ultra-fast competitive multiplayer gaming. My current recommendation in the 1440p high refresh category for most people is the Asus ROG Strix XG27 AQDMG. This is a glossy WOLED monitor offering a 27-inch panel size, 1440p resolution, and 240Hz refresh rate with adaptive sync. For most gamers, after a high-end brilliant gaming display, the XG27 AQDMG offers an excellent range of features and performance without being priced well above where it should be. There's a few reasons why I'm recommending this specific model. Firstly, as it's a 240Hz OLED, it's still quite well suited to both single player and multiplayer gaming. It doesn't have the top end refresh rate you'll see from more expensive models, but if you're not planning on running games above 240 FPS, there is no benefit to getting a 360 or 480Hz OLED. All of these models deliver the same motion clarity when run at or below 240Hz. The HDR performance on offer here is very good, leading to excellent image quality, particularly for single-player experiences. We get deep zero-level blacks and tight control over highlights, which produces clean HDR imagery, free of zone artifacts. This particular WOLED has decent brightness too, for both high and low APL content, in addition to a glossy coating that preserves good black levels and is free from coating grain. The XG27 AQDMG is also relatively affordable as far as OLEDs are concerned, slotting in at $650 to $700 US, slightly down from its launch price. Yes, still pretty expensive overall, but this Asus model is better than its competitors, particularly in brightness, and especially if you can snag one for $650, which has been its typical price over the last few months. I would generally recommend the XG27AQ DMG over 360Hz QD-OLED alternatives because I believe 240Hz for most gamers is sufficient, and the Asus model is around $100 cheaper than the cheapest QD-OLEDs. But I wouldn't rule out QD-OLED options like the MSI MPG271QRX or the Dell Alienware AW2725DF, especially for competitive gamers where the better motion clarity and lower input latency at 360Hz is of benefit. If you think you'll mostly be playing fast-paced games above 240 FPS, pay a little more for a 360Hz QD-OLED. At the same refresh rate though, there's little difference between WOLED and QD-OLED. For $50 less than the XG27AQ DMG, you can also enter the OLED market with products like the LG 27GR95QE and AOC AG276QZD, but generally I recommend spending a little more to get the Asus model. The XG27AQ DMG gets brighter in real-world scenes than those earlier WOLED monitors, and I think a lot of gamers will prefer the glossy screen coating. But if you do want to go for the cheapest OLED products, you'll still be getting all of the fundamentals this screen technology brings, like its fast response times and per pixel control. Whether you go for the cheapest options or the XG27AQ DMG, you'll be getting a great bang for buck product given the performance OLED has to offer. Another option to consider if you want the absolute best 1440p OLED is the Asus ROG Swift PG27AQ DP. This is a 27-inch 480Hz WOLED, offering double the refresh rate of our usual XG27AQ DMG pick. But it also comes with a much higher price tag of $1,000 US, making it worse value in general, especially if you don't plan on utilizing that refresh rate. The main reason you'd buy the PG27AQ DP is for a zero-hassle, ultimate clarity multiplayer experience. There is no faster, clearer experience than 480Hz OLED outside of fiddly backlight strobe LCDs, and this Asus model offers this clarity with full adaptive sync and HDR compatibility. It also has a better subpixel structure than 240Hz WOLEDs, and it offers great brightness. But unlike the XG27AQ DMG and the QD-OLEDs we recommend, it has a matte screen coating, which some people won't like. Again though, this product is designed primarily for high-end competitive gamers. If you're going to mostly be playing games below 240 FPS, it's just not worth the price premium. But if you must have the best, the PG27AQ DP is it. While I have tested more ultra-wide OLED gaming monitors since my last update, my opinion on the best option in general hasn't changed. Get the Dell Alienware AW3423 DWF. At just $700 to $800 US these days, the AW3423 DWF is rarely beaten for value, and thanks to the latest suite of firmware updates, it also offers excellent performance. This Alienware model is a 34-inch 3440 by 1440 165Hz QD OLED, bringing benefits like elite response times and per pixel control. This panel can hit up to 1000 nits of brightness for small elements and just looks great displaying HDR content, making it highly suited to single-player gaming, especially with the immersive ultra-wide format. It's not the fastest OLED going around these days, now that we have 360Hz and even 480Hz options, but the speed of OLED does allow it to punch above its weight relative to an LCD operating at the same refresh rate. The DWF model is well calibrated and it has decent SDR brightness. The subpixel layout of this QD OLED, it isn't ideal for text quality, and like with all OLEDs, there is a risk of permanent burn-in. The glossy screen coating is divisive. It offers its benefits in low ambient light environments, but it struggles in brighter conditions, the usual things we've seen from QD OLED over the years. We've been recommending this display for a while now, and it's great to see Dell continue to offer the AW3423 DWF at a competitive price, adjusting to the rest of the market and new offerings, even forcing other monitors to come down in price. Especially if you can get one for $700, which is very achievable if you time it right given frequent discounts, it still offers excellent value in 2024. There is more competition in this category now though. Newer QD OLED offerings have increased the refresh rate to 240Hz, but typically this comes with a price premium. I wasn't overly impressed with the Gigabyte MO34W QC2 for example, which is retailing for its lowest ever price of $900 US, a near 30% premium over the Alienware model. There's also the MSI MPG341 CQPX, which is a bit cheaper than the Gigabyte, but I haven't tested it. OLED ultrawides are available as well, offering 34, 39 and 45 inch sizes at the same 3440 by 1440 resolution and 240Hz refresh rate. In my opinion, these panels aren't as good as the QD-OLED offerings, mostly due to their more aggressive 800R curve versus 1800R for QD-OLED and worse sub-pixel structure, though in other areas they trade blows, mostly because they are both OLEDs that offer elite response times and per pixel control. I've tested the ASUS PG34W CDM and wouldn't recommend it over the AW3423 DWF, given it costs $200 more, but the LG equivalent 34GS95QE is $800, which isn't too bad, but doesn't do quite enough to change my mind relative to the Alienware. When you start talking about the larger formats like 39 inches and 45 inches at 3440 by 1440, and yep, I've tested them both, yes, they're more immersive due to their size, and you might consider them if size is mainly what you're after, but I just don't think the resolution and pixel density is good enough, especially with rumors of higher density panels coming in 2025. If you want an even wider panel, there are 49-inch 5120 by 1440 QD-OLED panels available at up to 240Hz, providing a 32:9 aspect ratio, which is the equivalent of two 27-inch 1440p panels stitched together side by side. It's a very immersive format if you have the desk space to accommodate it. My lukewarm recommendation in this category remains the Samsung Odyssey OLED G95SC or the G93SC at $1,200 and $1,000 US respectively. The higher end G95SC is the model I tested, and it comes with full Smart TV functionality. If you don't want that functionality and are fine with a more basic OSD and feature set, the G93SC should be the same monitor without those features. $1,000 is a very reasonable price for this type of monitor, given they started out at $1,800 US, and the performance that you get from these QD-OLED panels is very similar to what you see from QD-OLED monitors in other sorts of formats and categories. So that's it for this OLED gaming monitor recommendation video. A lot of the excitement in the monitor market at the moment has been for OLED gaming monitors, and there has never been more options to choose from. We're expecting even more formats at the start of 2025 too, so a lot of good stuff to get excited about. As always, if you do want to learn more about the monitors I've been talking about in this video, I have individual reviews available right here on Monitors Unboxed. I'd also recommend checking the links in the description for updated pricing information, as this does change over time, so check down there if you are watching this video weeks or months after it went live. Anyway, that is it for this recommendation video. If you do want to support the channel and all of the testing that goes into these videos, obviously there's lots of monitors that we have to test to make our recommendations, lots of other things that go into these sorts of videos, then please do consider supporting us on Patreon if you have found this video useful and you want to support our independent testing. We also have the YouTube join button and super thanks. Those are additional ways that you can support the channel if you found these sorts of videos helpful. You will gain access to some pretty cool benefits if you sign up to Patreon though, like our Discord chat, great place to chat about monitors, ICC profiles, plenty of good stuff. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.